All right, I think the beer club, I think maybe what, 6 months now we've done this, maybe
Yep.
5 months, something like that. We bought the Vintage Cellars store in July, and we'd always kind of wanted to do a beer club, but our clientele was more on the wine side at Fifth and Wine. Weird how that worked out with that name. Um, but he had a big, beautiful beer cooler, and it's a very fun store. And so we started. I think we got about 35 members now, and we keep expanding, and we've done these, like I said, for a few months, and it's fun to learn about not only just the beer itself, but the people too. So I think if you wouldn't mind, Matt, just kind of starting out with what's Oscar.
Oscar.
Oscar. That's right. I just told Matt before we started recording that there's a Portuguese winemaker that spells it the same way and calls himself Oskar. He's got a great YouTube. You guys should do Portuguese wine and Oscar. He's
There
a
you
really
go.
funny young man. But anyway, tell us about yourself first, if you would, please, Matt.
Yeah, my name is Matt Lober, and I come to Oskar Blues with a design and creative direction background, and I've been with the company now for probably 3-ish years, and I'm coming to you in my log cabin up in the mountains above Colorado, which is I'm about 8 miles outside of Lyons, um, which is where the original brewery was for Oskar Blues, and the original brewing canning location of Dale's Pale Ale, which is kind of famed as being one of the first craft beers in a can. Um, so yeah, I'm a avid outdoorsman. That's one of the things that brought me to Oskar Blues is their passion for sustainability and public lands and mountain biking and all the fun stuff that I like to do outside. And that led me down some great relationships with people that worked with the company. And so when there was an opportunity for me to come on board, I jumped on it pretty quickly. And since then, we have totally shifted our strategy in how we come up with beers, how we release beers. The craft consumer has changed quite a bit since we started brewing beers in 2002. There's not a lot of loyalty anymore, and so we've shifted to cranking out a lot of awesome beers as trends change, and so we're just cranking out new stuff, fun stuff, and just living a awesome life in the mountains. We also have two other our main location now is in Longmont, and we still maintain our Lyons location as kind of our R&D facility. And then we have two breweries. We have one in manufacturing facilities rather in Austin, Texas, and North Carolina. Those each have tap rooms, and so we have a nationwide presence at this point, and I think we're in something like 17 countries.
Where'd the name come from, Oscar Brewing?
So Dale, of the namesake Dale Katechis, he's the dude that founded Oskar Blues, and really got his start back in the restaurant business. He was a restaurant guy long before he was ever a brewing guy, and I think that he ended up starting a brewery kind of on accident. There's many a folklore around the name of Oskar Blues. One of them being that that was one of the Blues Brothers that didn't make its way into the story. The third Blues Brother. But there's it's been with us since day one, and Dale is he's a character, man. So no telling where exactly that came from.
Is he still involved in day to day?
He is not. I wouldn't say the day to day. He's backed out and back to his roots in the restaurant business. We have Oskar Blues. The restaurants run a handful of locations around Colorado. Dale still owns that entirely, and then Oskar Blues, the brewery, has we're owned by a company called Canarchy that we started with Oskar Blues, and with the sale of Oskar Blues, we started that holding company, which is actually where I started out before focusing solely on Oskar Blues. But we own 7 breweries across the country, more famously Cigar City Brewing, is kind of our is one of our
We
largest
just we
breweries.
just did a interview with them like maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. That was
Oh,
fun.
great.
Out of Tampa, right? Yeah,
Was that with that was with Neil, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, so we we all operate independently basically, despite being owned. I know that there's a lot of conversation around how holding companies, uh, have their say in what goes on in a particular brewery, but we have totally changed our format and went through a lot of growing pains to realize that craft beer is best with a grassroots approach and with small scrappy teams. And so Oskar Blues, we operate totally independently. We have a marketing team of about 8 people right now, and we're super scrappy, and just everybody brings a lot to the table in terms of culture and vibe, and we all have a great time selling beer.
Nice. I was noticing on your website about the Auburn um, Brewmaster um, scholarship program or something, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the wake of everything that happened this summer with the George Floyd protests, the Black Lives Matters protests, et cetera, there was increasing pressure for businesses to participate in that conversation, and we felt like a social media post or just saying that hey, we're paying attention or we're listening, whatever, was kind of a hollow a hollow statement. And so rather than just issuing a statement or anything like that, we we recognize that there's an issue in our own industry with diversity and inclusion. And so we worked with Auburn, which is actually Dale's alma mater. He went to school there, and is surely an inspiration to folks going through the brewing program at Auburn. And so we worked with Auburn to create a scholarship there to put some folks through the brewing program, and focusing on bringing in more people of color to brewing and diversifying that. And so that's just kind of one way to put our money where our mouths are.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, that's fun. So I know you said you're kind of more of the marketing and the design. So we've talked quite a bit about new names for beers and new labels, and like it's got to be getting hard to come up with a new name, even like in your guys' world. Like we, it seems like there's a brewery in every corner in Montana, and I'm sure it's like that across the nation. So maybe talk a little bit about the marketing side since you're in that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been increasingly difficult over the last few years to name beers. So you're going to see a lot more people coming up with fake words or conjunctions or just stuff that is maybe not even English, because the way that the way the alcohol industry works and the trademark industry is that even if something for example, we had one beer. I'll just give you this example that we wanted to name after a popular fly fishing fly. You guys might have some of that going on in Montana, but Royal Wolf was the name of the beer that we wanted to create. And please don't take that if you're listening. But we ultimately couldn't put a trademark on it because there was a wine coming out of Italy. I can't remember what the name was or what the direct translation was, but in Italian, the label meant, the English translation of the wine was Royal Wolves, plural. And we couldn't even come close to that because this Italian version of it was trademarked. And so that's just one example of many that I can think of that, it's just becoming increasingly difficult. And so you see people, like our Can of Bliss series, for example, is maybe a bit of a subtle marijuana pun, but it's just something that is completely, why would somebody call that a can of bliss? It's just there's it's just, I can't even explain to you how difficult it is to find a name that isn't taken, or so a lot of creativity coming out of these marketing teams these days to try to find something that's unique and original, does, says what it's supposed to say in terms of what the beer is. And then you'll see stuff that's just totally off the wall and has nothing to do with the beer. And that's not really our style. But people are getting desperate these days.
Are you is Colorado full of hops like Washington and Idaho too? Are you guys getting hops locally there in Colorado, or
Not
or sourced
really.
everywhere?
We do not have a favorable climate for growing hops out here, unfortunately. We do, however, Tim Matthews, our lead brewer, has been part at the forefront of hop development, and for many years. We get stuff sent to us that people don't have access to, and these guys in our Lions facility are doing trial batches with hops that because these companies trust us to say, hey, here's a new strain that we're working on, why don't you guys take this, let us know what you think of it, and give us feedback and what you're finding. And then ultimately that ends up giving us just unmatched buying power in terms of hops, and so much so that I think our cooler in Longmont, our hop cooler specifically, is I think the largest hop cooler in North America, and we also sell quite a bit of hops to smaller breweries as well, because we just get a hold of those hops that other people can't.
You just use North American hops and malt, or do you go Europe or?
We do all sorts of stuff. We've been digging some Southern Hemisphere hops, some New Zealand hops specifically, and then we work. It's all about relationships on our side. We love to work with people that we have relationships with, or that that we're friends with, and fortunately we have a pretty social bunch. So again, Tim Matthews, being the nerd that he is, has relationships with people across the globe. And in fact, we're the Montana Malt Company up there, we're looking at doing a beer with those guys here pretty soon. And and also another company, this hat that I'm wearing, I don't know if you're familiar with Modern Huntsman, but those guys are based out of Livingston. And we're looking to do a kind of a Montana centric beer with those guys here soon.
A good friend of mine built the it's right here in Great Falls, that the first one you talked about. And a good friend of mine from Malt America, right, from South Africa, built that plant maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. So yeah, we have lots of barley being grown, malting barley here, and we call this the Golden Triangle. So there's lots of interest in those markets here in Great Falls. But maybe we should move on to the first beer, I guess. Like told us maybe Dale's Pale Ale might be a good place to start, since that's the beginning of it.
I mean, that's the beer that started it all for Oskar Blues, and actually started kind of the can craze. Back in 2002, Dale started a restaurant in Lyons, Colorado, and was working with a dude helping him brew beer. I think Dale started out brewing beer in his bathtub in college. And then some of the local folks in Lyons were helping him develop a recipe, and ended up being Dale's Pale Ale. And Dale, being like I said, a fairly creative fellow, had the grand idea to stuff that beer into a 12-ounce can. He's got letters written from, I won't name names, but from very prominent breweries telling him he's an idiot for trying to put beer into a can. It'll never work, and blah blah blah. And so Dale's Pale Ale was the first beer in an aluminum can. It went through a ton of effort with Ball Corporation and developing coatings that weren't corrosive, et cetera. And so the barn in Lyons, which is now our kind of our small R&D facility, they were in there literally filling Dale's Pale Ale one by one with a manual filler. So then now there's however many thousands of breweries that are in cans nowadays, and that's all accredited to Dale's. So Dale's Pale Ale itself is voluminously hopped. It was, you know, kind of a industry breaking beer at the time. Very, very malty, sticky, very hoppy pale ale, but not in that bitter IPA realm. We consider it an American pale ale at this point. But yeah, it's a super smooth drinker. It's just great malty sweet backbone, and with a very nice hop profile.
It's interesting. I think we have what, 17 beers in our beer club list, or 16?
14.
14, which normally we don't get that big of a variety. So you and I and Tara picked out kind of what we're going to taste through. So that was our first one, and we just had it. What do you think about food for this one? Any suggestions on that? To me, it would have to be a rich, heavy cheese or something.
Yeah, I agree with that. Some that I like to pair it with wild game, actually. You know, if you're having it with maybe with a classic steak dinner, that kind of thing, or you know, I do a lot of that beer in particular with some cheeses and some traditional charcuteries, some cured meats. It's a fantastic, very well balanced beer that's not gonna blow out your palate, but still provides a lot of, you know, just full body taste.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's got some bitterness at the end, but not like anything, some of the big bitter IPAs. So.
Right.
And the next one we're going to go to is this one.
So this is Cannabis Resinous, and we have the Cannabis series, which is basically our platform for innovative IPAs. Like I mentioned earlier, we have you know, we have a lot of hop trials and experimental hops sent to us that we get to mess around with, and this beer, you know, back in the days when the brewery was just getting started, those, you know, really piney IPAs was really popular. Nowadays we've moved into the tropical craze with a lot of IPAs and hops, rather, with those really tropical flavored hops, flavors like mango, tangerine, papaya, you know, any tropical, basically stone fruits is a whole category of hop profiles. And this beer is really cool because it has a little bit of both. It's that we consider it to be an old school IPA with new school hops. So it has some of that piney, you know, that pine sap kind of flavor, combined with notes of grapefruit, and yeah, so it's just that perfect mix of pine and stone fruit, which is not really common for IPAs right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very understated IPA compared to some of the new styles, right?
Yeah. Yep. And you know, as far as pairings go, I'm not really sure on this one because it is a fairly loud beer in terms of you know, of an overwhelming flavor.
I think maybe a bouillabaisse, you know, the soup from Marseille, France, would be one, because it mixes a lot of herbs, just kind of like this does to me. So I think maybe that would be a soup to pair it with. But
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't
great.
know. I don't know too much about beer pairing, but I've done a lot of wine pairing. That's what I would think.
No, this is great. You could school me on some of this stuff.
You're pretty good at Zoom. Have you done a lot of Zoom meetings?
Well, since the since about March, I've been on more Zoom meetings than I care to admit. And you know, thankfully, our company was able to adapt very quickly, and you know, most of my team is working from home these days. And you know, but I've got to throw out a huge shout out to all the production employees and stuff that are still out on the floor and don't have the luxury of being able to work from home like we do. But yes, we've gotten very skilled at these video calls.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that. I would rather work from an office personally. I like my home, but I like to get the hell out of it too.
No, I know I have to have a change of scenery. Otherwise I get distracted. So, I still go into the office probably three-ish days a week and am generally very productive when I have that whole office to myself.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. I think it's Death by Coconut.
Yeah, so Death by Coconut is one of those beers that has been kind of a mainstay for us. It's an Irish style porter. We use a ridiculous amount of cacao and coconut in it. So this is, if you're not, it can be fairly polarizing. If you're not into coconut, then this beer is not for you. But it is a very decadent beer, and this is maybe one of those kind of dessert beers, something.
To me, it's like an almond joy bar. She just said a German chocolate cake. It's seriously full of, like you just said, cocoa and coconut. It's
So we had our partners in this beer, they run a company called Talaka, and they developed a cacao, basically an extract. It's not an extract. We're still using whole cacao in its form, but they've found out a way to make it a liquid that allows the brewing process to go much smoother and allows us to keep that really rich, everything that cacao brings to that beer.
Yeah, we think a dessert of some sort would be perfect here.
Yeah,
We don't have to be too
absolutely.
specific, but
Yeah,
I might actually pair it with some kind of an orange dessert, so you kind of get some kind of a fruit to counteract the chocolate and the coconut.
there you
Myself.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little Mai Tai type combination there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be fun, I think, because you wouldn't want to put chocolate on top of this. I think that would compete with it, right? You want it
Right.
to,
Absolutely.
right. So how about Dale now, as far as his daily involvement? You said he's more on the restaurant side. We run a restaurant, so I'm interested in that. Like what type of food does he in his restaurants do? Is it more Americana? Is it fancy French gourmet or?
They were Cajun style food was their bread and butter. And so I know that Dale's mom Yaya was kind of spearheading things in the kitchen and for a while there, and she leaves behind a legacy of amazing Cajun style recipes. And so it's very much Americana Cajun style foodery, with obviously a healthy healthy beer offerings.
Right. That Cajun and beer, I think that's a great combination, right?
Absolutely.
That's better than wine from a wine guy even. So in my opinion.
Yeah. And on the Cajun theme there, do you have Death by King Cake there in front of you?
We just poured it, yep.
No.
Right here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we just poured it.
Gotcha. Yep. So that since we're on the topic of Cajun, that beer is set to release here again this year, just in a couple of weeks, just shy of Mardi Gras. So beer is obviously inspired by the king cake, and so it's
tell us about king cake. I'm from Montana.
So I know, and I grew up in Alaska, and so I have even less familiarity with that side of the culture. But so it's I don't know how to explain it. It's just a very decadent, rich cake, and this particular beer emulates that with lots of vanilla and cinnamon and cacao nibs, and then it's got orange peel and pecans in there as well. And so you've got this really cakey, aroma coming from it. And this year we're brewing it with basically taking those ingredients that what you're tasting right now was last year's brew of it, and this year it's going to be even more. I think we multiplied the vanilla in that beer by about tenfold. So, and the feedback that we're getting thus far is that it smells like cookies. So that's a win, and we're looking forward to seeing how that beer is perceived this year in its second iteration.
Now, I know that we use some variety packs. Like is the Can of Bliss, that was a variety pack, and Death by was a variety pack. And they don't get sold in six packs or anything, or
So our Death by series. So this year it's going to be Death by King Cake is in February. We're creating a beer called Death by Flapjacks, which is going to be released in the summertime. And then
Maple syrup.
Yep, they're figuring out how to work the maple syrup in there. And then this fall we'll have our annual release of Death by Coconut. So that series is kind of a seasonal release, and those are available in 4-packs. So, and then as far as, Can of Bliss goes, that being a little less of a specialty beer. That's, more in the ubiquitous IPA category. We have that beer is available in our Conundrum 15-pack, which is our kind of our main sampler. There's 5 different beers in that 15-pack. And then we also just came out with Pack of Bliss this fall, which is a 12-pack that has 3 varieties of Can of Bliss in it, and then Pinner as well, which is our session IPA.
okay. I didn't get to see it before we packaged it for our club, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
So we're heading on to the last beer that we're going to taste. I mean, these guys got a bunch more beers to taste, but we can't go through all those because they'll get bored. So this is our last one. You want to tell us about this?
Yep. So that's our Can of Bliss double IPA, and I think that comes in at 8.2%. But I think as you're tasting it, you'll realize that it is not. It's not hot. It's not real boozy. You can't tell that it's an 8.2% beer. So in that sense, it's gets a little dangerous. And then also, it being a very hazy IPA, it's really not a bitter beer at all. It's got, the pretty classic hazy mouthfeel. And it's got the Citra hops in that beer. So Citra is, a pretty popular hop, been around a long time. And so if you like those citrusy type hop flavors, and hazy beers, then that double is a pretty fantastic offering, and you can find it in most places. So that's a great.
We're not sure we've ever really talked about hazy, the term hazy in the beer world with other.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of give us a little update on that, or a little insight on that?
I mean, hazies have really taken the craft beer industry by storm, and so much that they're hazy IPA is kind of anything that you tack that hazy word onto just seems to sell better than just about everything. We talked at the beginning of this call about Dale's Pale Ale and what kind of what beer consumers were drinking back then. And the hazy trend has really taken the category by storm. It's unfiltered. There's basically that hazy profile just comes from some proteins in the grains that we use. There's various levels of haziness, and I think you've got a beer on your table there that's thick haze, which is even more of an homage to that thick, kind of opaque style. And it's just a completely different mouthfeel than something like a traditional filtered IPA.
In the wine world, we would call this big and chewy. That would kind of
Mhm.
be my description of it. And also, I think in the wine world, it's going on with like Pinot Grigio. They're leaving skin contact, and they're not filtering, and they're not fining, and they look similar color to this one to me. So I think it's maybe happening across the spectrum of the booze world right now.
Yeah, I believe that. I'll have to go find myself some hazy wines.
They call it orange wine. If you
Well,
look for an orange wine, right?
yeah,
Gotcha.
and then we have some unfiltered wines
A
too.
lot of unfiltered wines
Tons
anymore.
of unfiltered wines.
Where people see those
tartrates
and they kind of come and complain until we explain that that's just dead yeast cells. It's not going to hurt you. It's just like
Right.
It keeps the flavor in there, which I assume must be in the beer world too. Is that what they think? It keeps more flavor in?
Yeah, I mean it exactly. I mean, there's just I think mouthfeel is a part of it for sure, which is, which you described as chewy. I think that's a good way to think about it. And then yeah, you do, hazy beers bring on a certain flavor character that I think are just vastly different um, than than those filtered beers. And I think that just has a lot to do with um, more presence from those proteins.
I could see like a big swordfish steak or something thick white steak with this, where a nice
Or a
beurre
taco.
blanc or right something where you're adding richness to your mouth while you're adding richness. It's like in the wine world we talk about matching weight with weight or whatever. So I think that might be the same here. So I think if I was going to pair something with this, it'd be that to me anyway.
Yeah, I like to drink those hazy beers with something like halibut tacos or
Yeah, perfect.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
So you can't see him because there's just my name down there again. But Jeff and Dennis work over at our location that we do this for, Vintage Cellars, and they're on. And Jeff was wondering about the mustard beer that you do.
Yep.
Or you did.
So this was came to me from somebody that I used to work with back in my advertising days. They worked on the McCormick's account. McCormick's being, the massive spice company that they are, ingredient company, and French's mustard is one of their brands. So they came to us with this idea that they wanted to do a mustard beer, and they picked us because we, we're kind of known as being a boundary breaking brewery, a very flavor forward brewery with beers like Death by Coconut, etc. And so we created this beer that is it's inspired by some of the cocktails that were coming into view from more metro areas. Like what we were noticing with those cocktails is that there was a nice citrus backbone, and that the mustard was balanced out by that citrus. And so what we did is we created a wheat beer that had purees in it. It was so the unfiltered wheat beer gave us that kind of very yellow opaque color to pay homage to mustard. Then we added 4 different purees. I think there was I can't remember the 4 of them off the top of my head. It was lime, lemon, tangerine, and it was maybe mango or maybe it was papaya. I can't remember what the 4th one was off the top of my head. But those purees really balanced out the mustard, and we think we used something like 160 pounds of actual French's mustard in that beer for a 20 barrel batch, and that ended up selling out online in about 15 minutes. And then we had some kegs at our 3 tap rooms, which sold out by the end of the day, and it generated a lot of PR for us, which was the ultimate goal. That's another trend in the craft beer world, are these these kind of crazy beers that get a lot of attention. But the response of it was so great that we are looking at doing a larger release of that this year. And National Mustard Day, in case you weren't aware, is on August 1st. So we'll look to have another release of that beer around then, I think.
Well, it's fun, Matt. Thank you. You've been very informative and fun, and do a great job on this. So we always end this session with one last question. If you're not drinking beer, what the hell else do you drink?
Well, right now I think I'm drinking a LaCroix, but no, I'm a big whiskey fan. My shelf is stocked with some very nice whiskeys that I have a very nice group of friends that seem to spoil me with new things to try. And so yeah, I would say whiskey for sure is probably my next in line.
And do you play the banjo?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I'm this room here since March has before March was my music studio, and now it is doubles as my music studio and home office. So do a lot of bluegrass picking, and I'm in a blues trio, play drums in a blues trio, and music has been a big part of my life, and it's been a big part of the Oskar Blues brand as well, which is which is part of the reason why I was so attracted to coming and working for this brand.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
hopefully, if you make it to Montana, we'd love to do a beer tasting with you, and we'll make some Bully Bays and some other stuff.
Sounds great. We'll have a day of pairing.
Exactly, that'd be fun. All right,
All
thank you,
right.
Matt.
Thank you guys
Cheers.
very much. Appreciate
Yep.
it. Go ahead.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
See ya.